I've invested over $500,000 in 3 passive income businesses: ATM business, real estate business, and the vending business. And only one of them delivers true passive income. While YouTubers romanticize all 3 options, having run them simultaneously for years, I can tell you that the difference between time, stress, and return on investment are shocking. By the end of this video, you'll understand the unfiltered reality between all 3 businesses. I'll break down the actual startup cost, time requirements, and return on investment without sugarcoating. And then you can make an informed decision on which path is truly best for your business. So I started a vending machine business. I installed in each location 1 snack and 1 soda machine. At the time, the machines ran from $2,000 to $3,000 per machine. So it's $2,000 to $3,000 for a snack and $2,000 to $3,000 for a pop machine. Now I could have bought used machines. I decided to buy new machines at the time. So the model in the vending machine business is fairly simple. You have 100%. 50% is going to go to product. 10% usually goes to commission to the location. Sometimes you can negotiate less, sometimes a little more, but for the average, let's say 10%. And then you have sales tax involved. Now sales tax has to be included in the price of your product. So for this example, it was about 8% in the state of Illinois. It's about 8% to the local municipality and or the state. So you're left with about 30% of profit margin in the vending machine business. So one of the other challenges we have is what we call spoilage. Each product that you sell, chips, snacks, candy bars, they all have dates when they expire, and then you can't sell the product anymore. And same thing with sodas. They put on a born-on date on that, and then once it gets past the born-on date, then people don't want to buy it, so you have a lot of spoilage. So you can either choose to take that home or give the product away. And if you give it away, you don't want to give it away in the location that you're selling, popping soda and snacks, because then it will deplete your sales. So you have to give it away somewhere else. And all that time you give it away or you don't manage your dates is more money that you lose on your profit margins. So you have to be very specific how much product to put in the machine, and you're constantly managing between how much snack and sodas you put in the machine and expiration dates. So you got to manage that all the time. When we originally started in with this, they didn't have born-on dates, and it was good for soda. Now they have born-on dates for soda. So that makes it even harder. In a location, what you could also have is you could have somebody request like a diet 7-Up or a caffeine-free 7-Up, something that doesn't move a lot. People will ask for this, you put it in, and then it doesn't move, and now you're left with a product that doesn't move. Especially in an office building, there's always a lot of strange requests, but one of the challenges is you're going to manage the strange requests to how much product you can sell. People always look for healthier snacks, but they don't buy the healthier snacks. Candy bars, chips, sweets, they move, the other ones don't, but you're going to constantly manage that between the locations. So the vending machine business just turned out that it wasn't for me. All right, so hold on. Before we go any further, we're going to get to the question of the day. I asked a question, you answer in the comments section below. The question is, has any of you guys tried out the vending machine business or real estate business? And how did it go? Let me know in the comments below. I constantly got service calls about a bag of chips being stuck or a pop was stuck. Then we would rush out there for basically $1 item or $2 item or what. I was running out there for a service call. Plus you have to manage the spoilage, and if you don't manage that properly, then you lose your profit. You have to run over to the supply house once a week or once every day, depending on how big your route is, to buy the product. You always have to buy the newest, latest, greatest product because of the dates. Then you're coming back to the home office, then you organize your route and you go around, you deliver all your snacks and sodas, then you come back, you pull the old stuff, or when it's close to the date, you've got to manage your dates. If you're not going to be there for a week, then you're going to have to pull out any dates that are going to be close. So you're constantly managing this inventory. You got to pick up product, and you can't pick up too much product because the dates, then you buy a lot of product, and then you have too many of the same dates, and then you can't sell it. So there's a constantly managed inventory, and you got to make sure that you have some great locations that go through a lot of product, so when it gets close to the born-on date, you can move those products. But in turn, the vending machine business, at least from my experience, wasn't the right business for me. There's too much managing of the product, and you have to have the right movers in the right locations to move the product. Number 2, real estate. I spent endless amount of time looking for the property. I understood the model of how to make money, what I needed to do, and if it has to fit in a specific model. If it doesn't, you'll lose money. So I knew the model that we had to have for the real estate. I had to have my parameters, but to get those parameters, you had to look at a lot of properties. I looked at a tremendous amount of properties. I spent countless amount of time on Saturday, on Sunday, at night, looking at properties online, not even meeting it with the realtor. Then when I saw there was a property that fit in my parameter, then I go and I contact the realtor. We go through a walkthrough. I bring the general contractor because I was focusing on fix and flips. That's where I wanted to be. I didn't want to be in a long-term property. I just want to get in there and change it and be done. Now, meet with the general contractor, we meet with the realtor, we walk around. General contractor will tell me, hey, this is going to be too much, or it's not, or it sits in our, it looks like this will work in our numbers. Okay, fine. Now we look, it works in our numbers. Now we put a bid on the property. Guess what? I'm bidding with a bunch of other people, and what happens is it bids and bids and bids, and then it goes up, 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 and then I'm out of my number. So now I got to say, well, I got to retract my bid because I don't want to go up any further. The numbers won't work. Then it's just a waste of my time. Then we're doing all the work for no money. So I decided, you know what, that didn't work. So I spent a lot of time doing that. Now we found a property. Okay, fine. So now we're ready to go. Now what happens is you apply for the permits, you line up the cost of the job, you get everything. So now you're going to finite that. The general contractor is going to give you a ballpark. Now when we actually get into the thing, we got to really tweak our numbers. We got to make sure that those numbers are exact so we don't lose any money. So we get everything tweaked out in our due diligence period. We're doing this all in the due diligence period to make sure it's worked before we go to closing. We get it all dialed in. Aha, this is going to work. We're ready to go. Close the deal and start our project, apply for permits, get the permits, and start our construction process. What we were doing is bringing everything down to basically bare bones, or the bricks, and building it all back up to dial it up and make it look nice. But you're constantly managed between the general contractor and the laborers on the job. I don't pound any nails, so I wasn't part of that process, but I am meeting the general contractor every week. We're going over the plan, making sure that we're constantly on the time schedule that we need to be. We're constantly on the material that we need to be. We got to make sure nobody steals anything on the job. We got to make sure nobody in the neighborhood steals anything. We're constantly managing that. If somebody breaks in and steals something or damages, now you go over your budget. You got to make sure that that doesn't happen. You set an alarm on the place. You got to meet with the electric company to turn the electric on. You got to meet with the gas company to keep the gas on. You got to make sure that this is always there. I bought a property that was an hour and a half to 2 hours away from my home. Why did I do that? Because the neighborhood was right for fix and flips and the profit margin was higher. Could I have bought something closer to home? I could have, but then the profit margin was less. So we had an opportunity to make money. Then when we got close, you know what? The project took a little longer, like it always does, than we expected. We thought it was going to take 6 months, end up taking a year to get the project done. So now I'm over my time span, and then we go to sell it, and I went to the closing time 3 times. I went to the closing table, and the people that were supposed to close on the first time didn't have the money. And then the second time, they didn't have the money, even though they were vetted, even though I vetted them. When they got to the closing table, they didn't have the money. So guess what? What we have to do is take it off the can't close, put it back up on the market. There's another 60 and another 60. So that another 60 2 times, and then you got to show the property. You lose all that time. That took me 6 more months. So a project that should have took 6 months took 18 months. Now, luckily, I didn't owe the bank on any of this. It was all financed with my money. But if it wasn't, then I would have been paying interest, and every time you're paying interest month after month after month, you're losing profit. So it's a race against the clock. So my profit margin was, in real estate, it turned out to be 10%. So all the time, all from the time of the job to the end of the job, my money that I made about $25,000 on the project. It was about 10% of what I invested in the whole project. For a year and a half of my time, make 25 grand. So with all this, I created the passive income evaluation matrix. This is evaluating businesses based on 5 critical factors. Number 1, initial investment. Number 2, ongoing time commitment. Number 3, maintenance headaches. Number 4, scalability. And number 5, and most important, every business needs this, is cash flow. This is a framework that applies to every business, not just the ATM business. Vending machine business. One of the challenges with the vending machine business is the product. You have the born on dates. You're constantly managing the inventory and the thresholds of inventory, not only to what you buy at the store. It's a warehouse. It's not a store, but basically it's a store that you go into and you have all the sodas, all the snacks, everything you're going to put in a vending machine. They have specific warehouses for this, and you buy your product there. The challenge with the vending machine business is you're constantly managing the product. Now, one of the things I love about the ATM business is you don't have to manage a product. Cash never expires. You can sit in the machine from now until the end of time. It's not going to expire. And when you're in the vending machine business, everything you do expires. You have to constantly manage that. Also in the vending machine business, you have route efficiency challenges. What does this mean? This means that most businesses, not every business, but most of the business you're going to put your snack and soda machine they are usually 8 to 5 businesses, sometimes 8 to 6. So if you're working a 9 to 5, there is not a lot of time to fill the vending machines. Now, sometimes we put it in some auto body places where, you know what, they open up at 7, they close at 8 o'clock at night. So it was a little easier, but depending on the location, most of the stuff and the successful stuff was an office building. Those buildings weren't open all the time. So you had to manage and I didn't do this part-time. I was doing it during full-time hours. The time wasn't that critical to me, but I had to make sure that I was in these locations at the right time, and we're constantly managing the time. Sometimes they didn't. It's like, hey, we don't want you here past 12. Oh, we want you here. We don't want you here in the morning. So you have to make sure that you're going to the locations when they tell you. And even though the business might be open 8 to 5 or 8 to 6, you could be on one side of the street in the morning and you would have to come back in the afternoon for the other side of the street because they didn't want you in there. So the profitability is going to be anywhere from 15 to 25% in the vending machine business. This is going to depend on how much commission you're going to give to the location, how much spoilage you have in your product management, how much time you have between double backing because you couldn't get into the location at the right time. So my profit margin was anywhere from 15 to 25%. So real estate. Now, I know a lot of the ATM gurus saying you can no money down, do this and all that. And you know what? I'm sure it's available. If you cut the right deal with the seller financing, you can come up with some of these things. But it's all going to depend on the deal. I was looking at fix and flips. You have to have cash. You have to have money to buy the deal because the sellers want to sell it, and they're not going to wait for bank financing. That's the way they did that deal. So doing fix and flips, have to be a cash buyer. We were a cash buyer. That takes out a whole lot of challenges. Can you buy real estate with no money down? Absolutely. It's called seller financing. You have to find somebody. But if you're going to do a fix and flip, they're not going to let you to do a seller financing. That's more for apartment buildings. So you have to have money when you go into real estate. So this business is super competitive. You can lose your shirt real fast. The deal can go sideways real fast. You can go into a deal, pick the right house, pick the right building, whatever. If you're going to fix and flip apartment buildings, you can fix it and then wind up that there's asbestos in the walls. What I was doing is I was dealing with buildings that were anywhere from 60 to 150 years old. So you could have lead pipes, you could have asbestos, you could have lead paint. You have to know what you're doing to be successful in this venture. If you're going to do real estate, you're going to need to pick a lane. Either that's going to be fix and flips, or that's going to be rental apartment buildings, or rental commercial, or rental residential. You need to pick a lane. There is so many different lanes in real estate. Wholesaling, retailing. There's a bunch of these different lanes that you can pick. My word is, if you're going to pick one, you have to pick one to be successful so you can dominate in that lane. I always talk about the same thing with the ATMs. Pick a specific business so you can dominate in that business. And in real estate, pick a specific lane so you can dominate in those lanes. If you go all overboard, you will get hurt. You will lose money. So when you get in the ATM business, it's going to cost you $3,000 for the equipment, and I always tell you to put $3,000 in the ATM, so you're all in for $6,000 in the ATM business. Now, if the ATM business don't work, take your $3,000 in cash, you're down to $3,000. Fire sell your ATM for 50%. You can always get that or more, so that's about $1,700, and your cost of doing business if you try the ATM business is about $1,700. So time management. Figure 1 hour per ATM for every ATM you got on the street. Maintenance, if you're buying a new ATM, there's not going to be any maintenance for 4 or 5 years. Very little to no maintenance in the ATM business. ATMs, keep in mind, they last about 15 years. So you'll have a long history of the ATM. Now, somewhere between year 5 and year 10, you will have to do an upgrade. Most of the time, it's just a software upgrade, and your first software upgrade is not going to cost you anything. Probably year 10, you might have to do a hardware upgrade, depending on what Visa, MasterCard come down the line. Also, this business is very scalable. You can scale as fast or as slow as you want in the ATM business. And now we get to my favorite is cash flow. Each ATM should generate you $250 or more. I like to say between $250 and $500 of passive income every single month, but it'll depend on the location and how good the location is. The ATM business constantly outperforms all other options when all factors are considered. Now, some of you might disagree, but this is what my findings. Don't choose a business on what YouTube considers a business to be most appealing. Choose a business with the lifestyle it actually creates, both with money and time. So if you're thinking about starting your own profitable ATM business, I want to invite you to our free checklist entitled ATM Business Passive Income Checklist, the 5 things you need to know to start your profitable ATM business so you can have a clear roadmap towards ATM business success. You can earn between $250 and $1,500 of passive income every single month. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Please join the ATM Mastermind group page, and we'll see you at the next ATM Mastermind video.